Good evening. The government insists it has no money to pay teachers. Teachers, on the other hand, insist that if they do not get the 50 to 60% pay increment that they were awarded, they are not making their way back to class. And caught in the middle of all this are students, some of whom are hoping to sit some major exams at the end of the year. This is KTN Prime. Let's take a look at our top stories tonight.
My appeal to teachers is to go and teach as urged, as requested by the employer.
We therefore, as TUC Kenya, fully and firmly support the demand that teachers be paid immediately.
We can't afford to pay you, government tells teachers. TSC goes back to Supreme Court to try and stop pay increment for a while.
Tulikuwa tuna hang outside, nikamwambia tukuje ndani because I'm the best in mathematics, tuweze ku-exchange na mbili tatu.
Desperate measures, candidate takes over teaching at Eldoret Sosiani Primary.
There are instances where you say some things and then they come out wrongly.
And no kidding, Mutai Nguni offers Luo elders a goat after hate speech grilling. Many thanks for joining us. Our sign language interpreter there at the bottom end of your screen is Meresha Owiti. Let's begin with the two big moves by the Teachers Service Commission and the government today. The teacher's employer has gone back to the Supreme Court to try and get a suspension order on the pay increment for teachers. And as the government again insisted they have no money to implement the pay increment order, teachers stayed away from schools right across Kenya, maintaining that if there is no money, they would not be teaching.
No dialogue in this forum. Dialogue si chakula, si mandazi, si hata kutumbua.
A lightly worded yet very strongly coded statement to teachers' employer TSC as the message for teachers to boycott classrooms reached home across the country.
That if this government has never seen a mad person, then let them know that as teachers of this country, we are going to show them the madness they have never known.
The government is sending a very strong message that every employer in this country can just defy the law, and then workers of this country can just be turned and transformed into slavery.
The teachers are demanding the 50 to 60% salary increment affirmed by the Supreme Court last week, failure to which they will escalate this paralysis of the country's education sector, which has now officially commenced barely a day after schools opened for the third term. The teachers now have even the full backing of the public sector trade unions under the umbrella of the Trade Union Congress of Kenya.
For those teachers who have not gone out on strike, hear us now. Get out, go to the banks, don't go to the classrooms to teach. Go to the banks to find out whether the government of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has paid you, and remain out there until the money has been paid.
We will only stop when rain, hailstorm and wind, they all happen at the same time.
And as the standoff persists, Treasury now says it does not have the 17 billion shillings the teachers are collectively demanding for pursuant to the Supreme Court verdict.
It was not fiscally sustainable at this particular point to provide an offer. So TSC could not have come up with a number which is inconsistent with the fiscal sustainability of that pay rise.
So I want to encourage the unions to give dialogue a chance, to talk to their employer.
But even as Professor Kaimeji calls upon the teachers to return to work, TSC has seemingly thrown a spanner in the works. The Teachers Service Commission has moved back to the Supreme Court to once more block the payment to the teachers. In the court papers presented at the Supreme Court Registry earlier on Tuesday, TSC wants the court to issue interim orders blocking the payments until their application is heard and determined. TSC says suspension of the orders by the court will allow the government time to undertake an adjudication of whether the wage bill to be occasioned by the payment is sustainable.
The secretary is bringing the idea of dialogue. They are already carrying a gun and pointing at us, moving stealthily and moving to court. So what is that?
But even as the standoff and war of words continues, the victims of these fresh finger-pointing accusations and counter-accusations spent yet another day unsure what to do with themselves in the absence of their teachers in the classrooms. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, Nairobi.
Alright, so here is our big question. Should teachers go back to class and give the government time to find the money to pay them? The teachers have been adamant, saying if that money is not paid, they are not going back to class. And today the government made it clear it does not have the money to pay the teachers. And even if it did, that increment is not sustainable. Tweet us at KTN News, at KTN Kenya. You can tweet me as well at Lindo Gut. I'd love to sample some of your views on whether or not you think teachers should go back to class and indeed give the government time to find money to pay them. So the impact of this standoff is having more profound effects on this year's national examination candidates, and it has been immediate and heavy. KTN's Masikandia spent the day with students who expect to sit for the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, whose story captures the real situation in the schools. Mercy, what did they tell you, and more specifically, what did you see in terms of learning in the schools today?
Yes, Linda, we did a spot check on some of the schools within Uasin Gishu County, in particular Eldoret Town, and in most of these schools there was no one in class. Either teachers, the principals and the head teachers had to source to the parents to come and, oversee some of the activities, parents who sit in the committees. But there's no one in sight in terms of the students. What the teachers were saying started from the homes. No parent was sending their children to school lest they misbehave or not, and they're not accountable for their activities during the day. But in particular today, Linda, we focus on Sosiani Primary School. About 30 children were in class today, but we spotlight on the story of one boy who has been nicknamed the governor, who beats all odds, and he knows that unlike his counterparts in private schools who are continuing their education, they have to learn from each other to ensure that they do their best come the Kenya national examinations in just 2 months. Take a look. It's been the same script but a different cast. The script of the grass bearing the brunt as two bulls fight. The teachers caught battle with the government and the effect it has on their students, in particular the national examinations candidates.
Times 4 to remove Sunajua.
15-year-old Vincent Otieno is the class prefect, nicknamed Governor. He's in class 8. Today he steps up his role to that of a teacher.
Tulifika hapa by 7 tulikuwa class. So nikona because tulikuwa tuna hang outside, nikamwambia tukuje ndani because I'm the best in mathematics, tuweze kuexchange na mbili tatu.
Vincent is among the top students in his class. Mathematics is his favorite subject, so that's what he shares today with his peers. The national exams are just around the corner and they have targets to meet.
Kwanza my target ilikuwa tupate 300 and above. Lakini mimi kwanza wale walimu wamekuwa hivi absent. Si vizuri sana because kama mimi nilikuwa nataka say this is a third term ni fupi sana. So kama tungeza kupata walimu wetu wangetufundisha mbele, because mimi target yangu nilikuwa nataka Mungu akinisaidia nipate 308 and above so that nende Kapsabet High School.
Out of the 165 registered candidates at Sosiani Primary School, only 36 came to school today. And before midday, Vincent heads home to read from home. Here, his mother ensures his studies. No house chores until after the exam. Education will rid his family of trouble, make them live better lives.
My mom wananieleza kwamba kitu yeye ananipatia saa hizi ni elimu. Kwa sababu kwa maisha sasa bila elimu huwezi fanikiwa.
Asipofanya mzuri ama asiposoma hii mule ya mwisho, hii itakuwa imeharibu kila kitu, hata penye ameanzia na hata penye amefikia.
Otieno's mother has been here before. Her 7 children have all gone through public schooling. She knows too well the impact it has on their progress.
Last year strike ya mwisho, I think it was 2013 hapo, kitu kama hiyo, 14 hapo. Mwanzo huyo nilikuwa na msichana mwenyewe anafuata, alikuwa anasoma Resco Secondary hapa. Hiyo kitu ili affect yeye, hata hakufanya mtihani mzuri mpaka akarudi. Saa hata nimemweka kwa shule nyingine, anarudi tena kurudia form 4 kwenda kufanya.
Staying at home or not being taught in school brings more trouble, she says, more than what meets the eye.
Maneno ya watoto ya kuendaga shule wanarudi, hiyo pia inachangia tabia nyingine yenye sio mzuri kwa watoto. Kwa ajili akifika pale akose shule, akitoka pale atakuja nyumbani direct, atakuwa anasungua kwa maduka, akitembea, akikuwa kama choko, labda anaomba chakula huko, na labda hata kwa shule yenyewe wameenda hakuna chakula anakula. Sasa wanasema badala ya kurudi nyumbani nimalize tu masaa nje, ndio ikifika jioni nifanye nini? Nirudi shule. Tafadhali watusaidie.
The serene environment or the disturbance of the chicken noise within the compound is what Otieno has to put up with until a solution between the teachers and government is found. In the meantime, the sky remains his limit. Tomorrow he'll teach his peers. After all, time, he says, waits for no man. Third term is the shortest and most critical term, they tell me, because they will be sitting for their national examination. And despite the myriad of challenges offered by the free primary school education, including the industrial action being taken by teachers, for these candidates here, they tell me they will do all they can to ensure that they compete at best with their counterparts in private schools. Marcy Kandia, KTN, at Sosiani Primary School in the county of Uasin Gishu. So Linda, there you have it. That is a story shared by many parents here and students. Their hope is that teachers will actually come back to class as soon as possible. Linda?
Indeed, Mercy, Governor, they are doing a very good job. Tell me, did you get a chance to speak to any of the teachers on the ground in the school? What did they tell you?
Yes, in fact, we spoke on the side with some of the teachers. They're saying they want their rights. They have been waiting for far too long. In fact, having no issues if we interviewed the students or not. Linda, the teachers that we talked to are determined to get their salaries. In fact, they were joking that what they'll be doing is just queuing in the banks waiting for their salaries. Linda?
Mercy Kandia, thank you so much. Well, that was in Uasin Gishu County. Let's take you to northeastern Kenya, where although the rest of Kenya is just waking up to the absence of teachers in classrooms, the northern parts have been doing without them for the better part of this year, and yet the candidates there are expected to take exactly the same examinations as their counterparts in other parts of Kenya. Fatma Pole has that report.
An unusual silence can be felt in most of the schools. Despite it being the first day of third term, no classes appear to be in session. Across the country, schools reopened amid confusion caused by a looming teacher strike. As a result, most students ended up missing out on their first day of school because teachers failed to report. But here, strike or not having teachers in class has become the new normal. It has been almost a year of students missing out on classes since non-local teachers failed to return to the region, citing insecurity reasons. Ahmed Ahden, a local teacher at 15 Girls Secondary School, says since his fellow teachers left, he has been forced to carry the weight of the whole school on his shoulders.
In our staff establishment, we have got 21 teachers. Out of the 21, 17 are non-locals. So what do you expect of that fear? They could not stay, so they left.
Last week, locals and students took to the streets in protest over the dwindling state of education in the region. They blamed the government for neglecting them by failing to solve the education crisis.
We already have the deficit in terms of teacher scarcity, and leaving of the teachers due to the process or due to the issues that have happened has caused more problems for the children in NEP.
We will be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
We wanted now to get the permission of the Ministry of Education and the Teacher Service Commission as an option to allow us to deploy the locals as UT teachers so that they can immediately report to schools, because many of our schools, especially those ones that are outside this town, have not opened.
Back in Nairobi, the Orange Democratic Movement has also faulted the Jubilee administration for failing in their mandate of ensuring better education for all Kenyans.
We are therefore demanding the following measures to avert the crisis. Number one, as a stopgap emergency measure, we are urging that students in northern Kenya due to SET, either KCPE or KCSE, be given special examinations. Special examinations that take into account the difficulties, the challenges that they have been exposed to for the last 1 year, that they have missed the normal instruction, as opposed to what their counterparts in other parts of the country have been able to access.
Meanwhile, students in the northeastern part of Kenya have resigned to their own fate. Their only hope being that when the issue of the teacher strike is resolved, that they too will reap the benefits. Fatma Pole, KTN News.
Quite a standoff there, I must say. The government says it has no money to pay teachers. Teachers say without that money they're not heading back to class. Let's see how this plays out in the coming days. Let's now move to some celebratory kind of news. 2 of the 6 Kenyan gold medalists at the World Championships in Beijing arrived to a big reception at which politicians competed for the limelight with the athletes. KTN's Nino was there.
Represented Kenya and finished top at the just concluded World Athletics Championships in Beijing, China. Arrived to song and dance, the Kenyan way to welcome a champion. Kenyans were out in large numbers, while politicians were also not left behind in rubbing shoulders with the world beaters. The team was officially received by the Deputy President William Ruto, who sprinted as an honor and way of appreciating the team that ran to the top of the world in Beijing. Limos, Chryslers and Hummers, among other lavish cars, were in waiting. A procession from the airport made its way to the Deputy President's residence in Karen, where an opportunity to sip mursik, the drink of champions, presented itself before sharing breakfast. The Deputy President was ecstatic about Kenya's performance.
We may not be the biggest country in the world, we may not be the most powerful, but we are the champions. We are the world champions. And this is history in making. It has never happened before that Kenya became the champions, the world champions. This is the only time that it has happened.
The celebrations continued to the Kenyatta International Conference Convention, KICC, where 4-time world champion Ezekiel Kemboi got down to his signature Emily Chepchumba dance.
Now it's the Olympic medal, and we have the Olympics next year. So after the season ending on the 11th for me, I think I will come back home, have my holiday, and I will plan for next year now when I begin my pre-season training.
Number 4. Sasa nikaisema waje niende ningangane kwa waje zote kwa sasa, kama nimeona niko number 4 kwa world, lazima niingie any medal in world championship. Na sasa nikaiangalia kama nimeingia top in world. Gold medal is important.
It's absolutely clear to us that with facilities, with better infrastructure for sports in Kenya, we can actually become the natural champions of this world. The people of Kenya and the government of Kenya must do our part, and I think that is already well cut out for us.
Today's activities is just but one of the ways to appreciate what the Kenyan team has done at the just concluded World Athletics Championships in Beijing. But even as the celebrations continue, focus is slowly shifting to the Rio 2016 Olympics. Lynn Washira, KTN.
Politicians there competing for the limelight alongside the athletes. So, congratulations indeed are in order to the entire team. Let's remind you of a big question tonight. We're focusing on that government-teachers standoff. Should teachers go back to class and give government the time to find the money to pay them? Let me sample 2 or 3. Andem says teachers should not go back to class unless they are paid. This government cannot be trusted. Hada Snoop says, find money from where? In the bush. Those are just delaying tactics. Let the government divert money from other sectors. Finally, Kombom Zalendo says, let the government swallow its pride and pay teachers. You cannot send demotivated teachers to class. Just some of your comments on our big question tonight, whether or not teachers should head back to class and give government time to find the money to pay them. You're watching KTN Prime. We thank you for staying with us. We're taking a short break. We'll be back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Now, the Kenya Meteorological Department has indicated that the onset of the long rains which may come with the dreaded El Nino may start within the first 2 weeks of October. They say that the county governments in places usually ravaged by floods should expect the rains to last till the end of December.
El Nino is an event that starts the signs start being seen in April, May, and then the evolution continues until its maturity in December. So in terms of how strong it will be, normally I think we'd wait to monitor until its maturity in December for us to really classify it as strong, weak, or moderate. So far, up to date, the kind of orders of magnitude of the surface temperature anomalies that have been observed in the Central Pacific Ocean have indications that this is a strong event. But like I said, we'll wait until when it matures in December really to classify whether it's weak, moderate, or strong as such. So it's at that time that we can really compare with the other events that have already occurred in history. If we just talk about El Nino and reflect back 1997-98, we are confusing Kenyans. At any time you talk about El Nino, they reflect back to that year. But what I always tell people is that 1997-98, yes, we had a very strong El Nino, but there are also other patterns that led to the kind of rainfall pattern that we saw. I think what is key is what kind of forecast we have. If we got some of the areas in 1961, if you look at history, 1961-62, we had one of the heaviest rainfall that has not been surpassed.
We have a program that we have already drawn, and we are sending teams from next week. They are going to all the counties throughout the country, and the main message is to make sure that people are prepared.
Let's now focus on a story that was the focus of social media a few days ago. Political scientist Mutahi Ngunyi has pledged a goat to the Luo Council of Elders as a peace offering to the Luo community. Ngunyi came under sharp criticism for his comments posted on Twitter, which were regarded as hate speech targeted at the Luos. He was speaking after being grilled by the National Cohesion and Integration Commission here in Nairobi.
The law requires that you be given a chance to reconcile. So I came to also request for that. The context of my tweets, if I have not done very many of them, and also the context of every utterance I make in public is largely one of a public intellectual, and I'm also known to speak my mind sometimes. But there are instances where you say some things and then they come out wrongly. I don't mean to say that Luos are poor, for instance. I mean, I'll be stupid to say that. But the context in which I talked about this is the politics of some politicians that breeds poverty in certain areas.
For him, if he has issues with Raila, he should address Raila. We will not have a problem with that. But he should not bring the whole community into it. That is the beef we have with Mutahi Ngunyi.
But Apollo Mboya, if you know where he lives, can you ask him to look me up? I can buy him a beer and we reconcile, or coffee, or whatever it is.
Mutahi Ngunyi there trying to explain himself. You're watching KTN Prime. We're taking a short break. I'll be back with the day's business news. Welcome back. Let's look at business news now. Land rate defaulters in Nairobi can now get a 90% waiver on all their backdated dues. That is, if they pay their land rates within the next 1 month. Speaking in Nairobi, the governor, Dr. Evans Kidero, said the initiative was geared at encouraging defaulters who owe up to 158 billion shillings in unpaid land rates to pay up. Kidero says those who do not take advantage of the promotion by the end of the month risk losing their properties as the county government auctions them off to recover the money owed. City Hall is hoping to collect a total of 3.5 billion shillings during the amnesty period.
Effective today for the next 30 days, Nairobians who have rates outstanding will be required to pay those rates, and we've given revision on all the outstanding penalties and all outstanding interest. So my appeal to them is they made representation, we had them, and for us to give the much needed service that Nairobians need.
We would also like that people take advantage to register properties that have not yet been put in the valuation roll. As we said, Governor has just mentioned we have 150,000. So obviously there is 350,000 or 250,000 that is not registered. We'd like people to come forward and get those ones captured in our database so that they actually enjoy this waiver, because the rate is actually due from the date of registration of your title.
You need to take up that offer. The race to save the Mau ecosystem is on after efforts to evict those who had encroached into the forest failed. The government and other partners have now come up with more sustainable ways which will see farmers embrace new farming methods that will allow them to harvest more crops while conserving the environment.
Forests are among the most valuable assets on earth, but in Kenya, these assets have come under constant attack owing to a surge of human population. Among those hardest hit is the Mau Forest Complex, one of sub-Saharan Africa's largest canopy woodlands, covering over 400,000 hectares, which has faced increased human encroachment that has seen the forest cover diminished considerably. As a consequence, farmers within the Mau and the Masai Mara ecosystems have reported more erratic rains, more extreme floods, and increased occurrence of drought. The region's extraordinary biodiversity is suffering too, with animal numbers falling steeply. However, the Mau Mara Serengeti Sustainable Water Initiative could be the solution to striking a balance between human activities and encouraging biodiversity.
Our approach is to set up demonstration sites that serve as examples of some of the technologies and the approaches, the innovations in agriculture that the program is bringing in, and then to expose a much larger number of farmers to the activities inside of those demonstration sites.
The initiative teaches farmers how to earn a living as they preserve the Mau forest ecosystem and the related watershed that provides drinking water to population living downstream of the Rift Valley and Western Kenya's most important water catchment.
Kwa ajili sasa wakulima wameanza kuangalia kweli kuna pesa, na si pesa peke yake, watoto wanakula, nasaidia tena familia.
It encourages farmers to integrate tree crops in their small farms rather than planting ordinary trees that farmers have been saying take much of their space in their farms and take long to mature.
Mtu kuambiwa apande miti anaona ni ngumu, lakini sasa wakaangalia ile binadamu atafanywa nini, wakaona afadhali tuletee mkulima ile kitu anaweza, tuseme sasa kama avocado unaweza kula na tayari unahifadhi nini environment.
Philip Keitan, KTN Business.
Kenya Airways is set to receive a 20 billion shilling loan from African Export-Import Bank, having finalized on prerequisite conditions set by the financier. The national carrier will use the loan as a bridge facility as it charts a long-term recovery plan from the historic 26 billion shillings loss posted in the last financial year. KTN's Charles Gitonga reports.
Kenya Airways will soon receive the 20 billion shillings loan facility from the Afrexim Bank, which will boost liquidity in the cash-strapped airline, even as inquiries into the operations that led it into a historic loss continue.
This facility is just a bridging financing as we develop a bigger plan on how to recapitalize the company, and we are going to wait for proposals like, how much will be debt, how much will be equity injection and all that details.
In his presentation to Senate Select Committee, Treasury Secretary Henry Rotich said that the long-term turnaround strategy for the airline is hinged on the ongoing consultancy work by American-based consultant Seabury.
That's why we have these consultants to unearth some of the critical things that we want to know before acting as shareholders.
The recommendations are expected to change the airline's current shareholding structure depending on the terms of bailout that will be agreed upon. At the moment, the government owns 29.8% stake in the national carrier. Dutch carrier KLM owns 26.73% and the International Finance Corporation owns 9%. The Senate wants all shareholders to be properly engaged in the turnaround strategy.
Have you engaged the other shareholders as you take these 3 steps? Obviously, you must have engaged IFC if you're getting that bridging finance from them. What about KLM? We have agreed with board and management to take steps, take measures that should be seen that they are addressing the underlying cause of this.
In May, government advanced a 4.2 billion shillings loan to the national carrier, which is likely to be converted into equity going forward. Treasury has however demanded that KQ management presents an expenditure plan for the money and that of the soon-to-be-received 20 billion shillings loan. Earlier in the year, the Treasury had hinted that the carrier will need at least 60 billion shillings to weather the turbulent storm, but the report by Seabury is expected to firm up the figures. Charles Gitonga, KTN Business.
So the shilling has weakened further against the dollar today, touching a new 3-year low of 104 shillings and 35 cents. The depreciation was brought about by end-month demands from telecom and energy companies that snapped up the U.S. currency. The shilling has also come under pressure from global market turmoil, with foreign investors withdrawing funds from emerging markets. The shilling, down 15% against the dollar this year, has been under pressure from the dollar's strength, Kenya's high current account deficit and poor tourism inflows after a spate of attacks by Somali's Al-Shabaab insurgents. Analysts say they expect the local unit to weaken further and even touch 105 shillings to the dollar by the end of the week, owing to the continuing imbalance of demand and supply locally. Focus will be on the central bank, which was in the market today to mop up 14 billion shillings in excess liquidity from the money markets. Let's now take a look at the financial market reports.
to advise the road sector unions and the workers to accept the reality of the devolved system of government, that they are no longer working for the national government, and therefore their issues can only be handled at the county.
Kenya dominated the just concluded World Athletics Championships in Beijing, China, emerging top of the medal standings with a record 7 gold medals. The excellent performance was almost overshadowed by 2 failed drug tests by Kenyan sprinters. The team jetted back to the country Tuesday morning.
We have put in place measures. We want to elevate the anti-doping agency and give it a legal framework so that it is backed by law. At the moment, it's just on the basis of regulations. Because of the threat that doping poses to sports in our country and in the world in general, this is a matter that we take seriously as government. We are already in the process of developing a scheme where any doctor participating in doping, and we have identified some doctors who are participating in this exercise, that they will not only be deregistered as doctors, but they will be prosecuted as well. We have agents managing our sportsmen and women. Some of them, we are going to be careful as to what they do, so that we avoid instances where young people are given into doping because their managers or agents are lax, or they become part of that racket.
Jasprit Chat requires 4 points to complete a rare double this Saturday during the KCB Nakuru Rally. The newly crowned African champion can even afford to finish 8th and still bag both the African Rally Championship and KNRC titles in the same season. All eyes will be on the Nakuru Rally this weekend.
Jasprit Chaten is to finish amongst the top 8 drivers to bag a double. He is required to pocket a paltry 4.5 points out of the 2 remaining rounds of the series. He'll be one of the drivers to watch during this weekend's rally in Nakuru County. Former winner Ian Duncan, teaming up with Amar Slach in a Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution, will be the first off the ramp. While Chate will be targeting a maiden championship and his 3rd win, Duncan will be going for his 2nd win of the season after emerging the victor in Kajiado in May. Classic car class has 5 entries, including Aslam Khan in a Porsche Carrera, Rob Helea in a Datsun 160J, and Samir Gillot in a Ford Escort MK1.
The people who grew up knowing what rallying is about, to come out to Nakuru, come out and watch this particular sport. It is amazing.
Don't try and emulate what will be happening on the ground with the rally drivers, because extra precaution has been taken for the rally drivers there.
Hassan Juma, KTN Sports.
Director of Administration, Ministry of Sports, Culture and Arts, Wenceslas Ongayo, has warned athletes to steer clear of banned substances, as it has the potential to irredeemably ruin their sporting careers. Ongayo, who represented Sports Cabinet Secretary Dr. Hassan Wario at the event, urged local athletes to familiarize themselves with the World Anti-Doping Code 2015 prohibited list, which details all prohibited substances, lest they get entrapped in the annals of sporting crime knowingly or unknowingly.
We would like at all times to compete fairly and win fairly. And you can only compete fairly and win fairly the moment you are doing all that you are doing naturally. If at all you are taking any liquid, let it just be water. You are not taking anything that is going to enhance your capacity and give you undue advantage to your opponents.
Men and then also the society and the environment can be totally united, centered upon true love, that we can create wonderful society and wonderful environment using our own talent and creativity to serve society, and environment. That's the third goal.
That was the day's post, and we thank you for watching. But just before we wrap this up, let's focus on that visit by President Uhuru Kenyatta at the coast. And the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, the national government, and the National Youth Service have undertaken huge projects to change the face of the Kenyan coast. On President Uhuru Kenyatta's 5th day of the foray into the coast, the government announced ambitious projects that will accompany the war on drugs there. KTN's John Juma has been following the event there. Here's what he has to report.
Day of his stay in Mombasa, President Uhuru Kenyatta first visited the oldest market on the island, Marikiti. The market has been earmarked for renovation and thorough cleanup as part of the National Youth Service programs to be undertaken in Mombasa. Like a tourist, the president then took a walk into the old town, mingling with residents, having light moments and being shown some of the spectacular sights of the ancient town. This as a show of confidence that the once feared old town where some foreign tourists and security officers have been killed and radicalization of youths taking place is now a safe haven. But it is the president's speech on the fight against drug abuse that challenged the local leaders, residents and security officers at large on where they should direct their energy.
Mpaka wale mabonyenye wakubwa ambao ndio wanachukua na wanaokota pesa kule juu, mkiamua siku moja ya kwamba hawa watu mtawatambua, I promise you hii kazi mtakuwa mmemaliza ndani ya wiki moja.
Why does it have to take the president to tell you kwamba upigana na mihadarati? Why? Wewe kwani wanauza si majirani zetu?
Haja yetu hata sio watoto wetu wale ambao wanakunywa hizi madawa. Kwa sababu hawa jameni ni watoto wetu ambao wanaomba usaidizi. Mimi nasema wacha hawa watoto tuwachukue, tuone vile watapata matibabu warudi sawa. Hakuna haja ya kuwashika kwa sababu hata ukimshika utafanya nini naye.
In the first 2 days of the police raids on the drug dens, over 60 youths were arrested in areas of Changamwe, Kisauni, Old Town, among other places of Mombasa. But residents have raised concern that the raids on drug dens may not yield much anticipated fruit if the drug barons and key peddlers are not dealt with as a way of cutting the supply of narcotics. He directed that Bandari College should reduce tuition fees charged on seafares and marine-related courses as a way of ensuring that many youths from the region get relevant training.
Kwa sasa wanaitisha 70,000. Tumekubaliana na hawa ya kwamba hiyo bei itashukishwa kwa nusu, iwe 35,000 na ndio watoto wetu waweze wengi zaidi kuwa wanaweza kuchukua hiyo certificate waweze kupata makazi.
The president launched the Mvita constituency NYS programs where over 1,000 youths will be recruited. The addicts will be rehabilitated at Miritini NYS station and other stations to be established.
Zaidi ya vijana 70,000 wamefaidika kwa mradi huu.
John Juma, KTN News, Mombasa.
Let's now take a look at the weather forecast. We've all heard that El Nino is on the way. You need to know what to expect, of course, with the weather. Let's take a look. So, on our big question, we're focusing on that standoff between the government and teachers, and we're asking you if you think teachers should go back to class and give the government time to find money to pay them. Lots of feedback. I must tell you, Jasper Asango says, our teachers should not go back unless they're sorted. The government should respect the court's ruling and move on. Kanyi Gioko says, no, it's the same as asking, should the government stop collecting taxes until they up their game? Ndungu Wainaina says, going back to class does not mean teaching. Teachers may be forced back, but no teaching will happen. James Croplo teacher says, budget can always go to parliament and money can be chopped from various departments. Teachers have suffered for a very long time. Washuka Wainaina, where is the government looking for this money? Are they even looking or running to court to sabotage that ruling? Maxwell Vincent asks, How many years has it been? Since 1997. The court spoke. Now it's time ya kutenda. George Nyaoke says, it's the government that abandoned dialogue and took teachers to court. The government should stop playing games. Ya teach Sept says, budget was approved without the teachers. What the teachers are demanding, they should give the government time. And let me see if I can sample one final one. There we go. Maurice Oduor says, TSC should stop wasting time and money and just pay the teachers. Hope the Supreme Court will refuse to hear their case. Just some of your views on our big question tonight, whether or not you think teachers should go back to class and give the government time to find money to pay them. And that is where we leave KTN Prime. We thank you so much for watching. Remember, those of you who are still on KTN News, Worldview begins immediately after this bulletin. And tonight, we are focusing on stateless people. There are an estimated 12 million people who are stateless and thus are denied several rights that should be given to any person who is not stateless. So 12 million. If you're on this DSTV, that channel is on channel 274. If you're on Zuku, that's channel 14. And if you're on GoTV, that is channel 94. And that is where we leave it. Thank you so much for watching KTN Prime. Remember to be part of that conversation on Worldview. The hashtag is Worldview KTN. Have a good night. I'm Linda Ogutu.